When you think of the slimiest, most double-crossing ninjas of all time, you probably think of people like Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton, Osama bin Laden. But what if I told you there was someone who was even worse than all these people? A man with truly no morals, a blogger from Chicago who was actually a federal informant over 10 years reporting everything. This blogger just might have single-handedly be responsible for taking down the entire O-Block.
Go up in there and be like, I don't know this one, I don't know none of these people, ball up and put my hand on my head. I got business. I got 5 fucking businesses. You think I'm finna do a day for you? Hell no. Hell. On everything, I said.
While at the same time doing it all for payment by the federal government, man. This dude is a legend in both the shooter, snitch, and gangster community, and it's none other than Trench's News, a former Black Disciple gangbanger turned into a paid federal informant. And it's honestly wild, the fact that this man did all this for several payments adding up to $24,000 and tried to remain anonymous just to get publicly outed by the newspaper. It's an all-around crazy situation that might just have a far enough reach to affect rappers like Lil Durk, with leaked paperwork apparently showing that that's his next target in the snitchery. Man, we gotta talk about the biggest op in Chicago right now, Trench's News, and his story and everything that went down that took down O-Block. But before we do, I'm gonna need you to like, comment, subscribe. We finna run at this video, man. Make sure y'all check out the merch, link in the description at staysafeworld.com. That notification bell so whenever I post, y'all are tuned in right away. Man, let's get into this. Chapter 1. Who is Trench's News? Apparently in between his snitch marathons, Martell Wiley, or Trench's News, or just Swiper as he's known throughout the Chicago underworld, had an actual crazy story himself. No, he wasn't that person that just stayed inside or was on the sidelines watching all this madness goes down. His story is actually super similar to the people who he was apparently conspiring against. Once a resident of the O-Block housing projects in South Chicago, aka Parkway Gardens, at a young age apparently joined the ranks of the Black Disciples. However, somewhere along those lines, gained close alliances with GDs, like members from the STL, EBT, like FBG Duck and them. But to understand how this all played out, we gotta go back to the beginning. Swiper, as he's commonly called in the Chicago drill scene, is a BD for Madden Park Homes. However, Madden Park Homes was eventually torn down, which led to him setting up shop in the infamous Parkway Gardens, aka O-Block, because they were at the time allies. O-Block is probably the most famous housing complex in the south side of Chicago. Apparently somewhere at this time though, there was a disagreement between members of the Madden Park that had moved and people from Parkway Gardens when there was a BD by the name of Reezy who was gunned down. But then the members that had just moved in were blamed, even though it allegedly Wooski who did the shooting. But soon after this disagreement, Swiper apparently went to the Gerald City area of the south side. During that area, he was close to STL, O-Block, Gerald City, all throughout their ongoing super active war that basically went down. Somewhere along those lines though, Swiper became close with members of STL and members like FBG Duck and FBG Butter and all them, even having pictures with them. And it was not too surprising because he was really like 10 years older than Vaughn and all the other younger members at the time. So they were all doing the drills while he felt like he was at a distance and not really part of their beefs because he was like older, but he was still around this because he was outside all the time. But his movement throughout the city and the fact he was definitely outside basically had him seeing everything and anything that went down, but from a different perspective from all these other people. So off rip, he also went to college as well and was a victim of several shootings. So he wasn't really like a full-fledged one of these gang members that were going around just shooting people, you know, for retaliation and stuff like that, just to push an ongoing war. He was one of those people that were swiping. He got his name Swiper from stealing from different dealers, robbers. He said it even detailed that after he was shot, after he was basically mistaken for someone else, he went on a crazed run and basically tried to rob everyone. He robbed anyone in sight that had guns, money, drugs. And that's where he basically got his name Swiper. But he wasn't really full-fledged like a member in these gangs in the way that he was going out and doing drills. He was kind of just like a guy that was getting money at the same time. And you really got to realize a lot of those people that he was around, like King Von and them, all those dudes were way younger than him. You know, he said he graduated college in like 2004, so he was like in his mid-20s while all this was going on. There was a major moment that essentially went down that changed the trajectory of the south side of Chicago and the Beast forever, and that's what we got to get into next for real. Throughout all the craziness that went on in the peak active years of the Chicago drill scenes, it seems that Swiper had a marathon of snitchery starting way back to even the infamous incident that took out K.I., aka Garcia Barnes, the legendary female shooter.
I'm on the passenger side. So when I turn and look, as we coming down, I'm turning to look. You know how you look and pay attention to everything? Bro, they in the cut, bro. It ain't no building too far along from them. They in the cut, but like, it's like a building, and then there's a space in the cut. You can see right through it. Hey, look, Vaughn, Big A, and Troy on T-Roy on everything, bro. They was in that cut. On everything. They was in that cut. And Buddy know it was Vaughn, man. I don't know why you...
His perspective from both of these infamous moments in Chicago drill lore basically came a lot of the ways that people even understood what happened in general. But there's a lot more that we gotta further get into. His biggest involvement that basically changed the game is snitchery and possibly being responsible for taking down some of the biggest shooters in O-Block for the biggest hit in the Chicago gang world, the hit that took out FBG Duck. By now, you definitely know the FBG Duck story.
Lights, sirens, and crime scene tape taking over one of Chicago's most notable streets.
I came to pick up the food here at the Le Colonial. Picked up the food, I was about to go, started my car, and next thing I hear poo 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 poo. I'm like, what's happening?
This food delivery driver was picking up an order around 4:30 when he witnessed two cars stop in the middle of Oak Street. Four men got out and started shooting.
You know, he was the biggest top member in STL EBT, or Tukaville as they say. A group of GDs that had a crazy ongoing beef with O-Block, aka Parkway Gardens. Apparently that whole beef was started when King Von and his murderous obsession / beef with the known shooter K.I., you know, Garcia Barnes, they had an ongoing personal beef which basically leaked out onto the internet, and Von tweeted at her and a whole bunch of craziness, which culminated in King Von getting the drop on her, allegedly ambushing her and shooting her in front of her brother. Eventually this shooting fueled a full-out gang war between STL and O-Block, which took a major turn when FBG Duck was killed in a scene that resembled the 1920s mafia hit, where he was gunned down while shopping for clothes in an expensive Gold Coast neighborhood in Chicago. Since that incident, prosecutors brought up a federal racketeering and murder case where they have accused 6 reputable O-Block members and associates in the killing of FBG Duck, Ralph Turpin, Charles C. Murder Liggins, Kenneth Robertson, Carlos Alfred, Christopher C. Thang Thomas, and Marcus Muwap Smart. According to prosecutors, Turpin was walking in the Milan boutique on Oak Street on the afternoon of August 4th, 2020 and spotted his rival FBG Duck, who was shopping for clothes for his young son's birthday. Turpin called members of O-Block to come to the Gold Coast from the south side, where they then pulled up and killed FBG Duck. A security guard secretly videotaped some of Turpin's phone calls, prosecutors said. Robertson, Liggins, Smart, Thomas, and Alfred allegedly jumped into cars and raced to Oak Street, where they saw FBG Duck standing on the sidewalk outside of the Dolce & Gabbana fashion store and started shooting him at about 4:26 p.m., officials said. The shooting lasted about 12 seconds in total, but the shooters fired 38 times and hit Duck 16 times, prosecutors said. The court filing said Robertson texted someone at 5:20 p.m. that day with a link to a news story about FBG Duck's killing. An informant that many believe was Trench's News told detectives and FBI agents that someone affiliated with the Black Disciples offered up to $50,000 to anyone that killed FBG Duck, and later raised the bounty to $100,000, as the Chicago Sun-Times has reported. In the months before he was killed in late 2020, King Von bought $128,000 worth of gold necklaces with the diamond-encrusted O-Block pendants from a jewelry store in Atlanta, according to the court filings, and they were trying to tie that into the payment for the shooting. While they were getting allegedly paid in that way, it seemed that Swiper, aka Trench's News, was somehow profiting the most off of this. First, he apparently stated that he had the murder weapon that was turned into the police. This basically made everyone start wondering what was good with dude and why he was, acting in the police favor. Then, in a crazy turn of events, a major Chicago newspaper basically aired him out, saying he was the star witness in the Duck trial. He was apparently willingly giving information for $25,000, and no, this wasn't a $25,000 lump sum payment. They were paying this man in installments for his testimony as a star witness. They definitely needed someone who had the backstory and inner workings of these gang beefs to even explain how the FBG Duck murder even got to the point where he was gunned down in a swanky rich neighborhood at that. You would think that the feds would somehow try to conceal his identity. However, front page of the Chicago Sun-Times said different and dropped the bombshell about how Trench's News was paid for all this and basically, put his life on the line after this. But there had previously been widespread speculation in the rap blogosphere that Swiper had violated the no snitch street code and was identified in court records as Cooperator 1, who prosecutors said provided information about O-Block's faction of the Black Disciples that's at the center of the murder and racketeering case. During an interview days before the trial began last month, Wiley dispelled what he described as rumors while sidestepping a question about whether he had been paid to cooperate with law enforcement. Within days though, he changed his tune in a bizarre YouTube video posted to his channel, wearing his signature face mask in an empty courtroom that he said was inside the Durskin Federal Courthouse. Wiley admitted that he testified in what he described as the trial of the century. They subpoenaed me to court, he said. I've got to come here, man, and tell them, man, it ain't no discrepancies, I'm here. Long live Carlton, he said in the video referring to Duck, whose name was Carlton Weekly. However, FBI Special Agent Kevin Doyle testified Monday that Wiley called the Chicago Police Department a day after the shooting and offered to help with the investigation. Doyle said Wiley was paid $24,963 over roughly 15 installments for his FBI cooperation, which began in April 2021. That means bro got paid $2,269 per snitchery. Bro, is your life on the line worth just several payments of $2,000? Honestly, I don't know. But the FBI agent continued to say he would give background information, reviewed surveillance footage, and reviewed social media postings, and noted that Wiley was dropped as an informant for a time when he grew unresponsive. As the trial played out though, Wiley was later posting multiple updates about the case and some of the people involved. Meanwhile, his testimony has remained a hot button issue, with many people basically finding out that he essentially was a snitch, sometime later. It seemed like there was a lot of points within the past couple years that people believed that he was a snitch. The fact that he was able to get all this information and was actually talking about it for free on the internet. I mean, not technically for free, like they weren't paying him, but he was getting paid from YouTube and stuff like that. But if you really look at his perspective, I mean, he gave different testimonies, especially on his IG story, basically saying that he's been in these neighborhoods and that gang violence has basically, destroyed the neighborhoods or made them a lot worse. And that is part of the reason why he did this. I think that was before people found out about the payments and stuff like that. So people were pretty much hot on his trail. But, I could actually kind of believe his type of, scenario going on in his head, that he really thought that this was the way to go. Him coming from a different background from all these people, like I said, he was 10 years older than them at the time, so that makes him like in his mid to late 30s. It seems like he's the type of dude that just doesn't care. I mean, he basically said that after he was shot in the head, his whole mentality changed. He said that the oxycodone that was on basically messed him up and had him thinking for the worst and basically crashing out. But I really feel like after you get shot in the head, you're definitely gonna be different, and at the same time, I feel like he saw a different side of Chicago, that he saw that it shouldn't be all about killing people and stuff like that. I feel like in different interviews, he basically talked about the fact that he grew up and went to school while he was growing up in different sides and grew up in a different era in general, where people weren't getting killed as innocent bystanders. It was, if you got killed, you deserved it type shit. But now he said that people just don't care and there's no morals in the streets and stuff like that. So I definitely see his point of view is rather that he has a responsibility and a responsibility in general to end this violence and take these people off the street. And on top of that, he has a responsibility to tell the true story of what went down, because there's so many inaccurate stories and there's so many different people within the story that all saw their perspective that think that some of the details are wrong, that he felt like he had to give the real story. So if anything were to ever happen to him, someone would actually know about this, because it actually influenced a lot. King Von ended up being a huge artist. Dirk and Chief Keef all had ties with O Block and that type of area. Lil Reese and all of them. you know, it is a real history within the rap world that, you know, the only thing that is comparable to this is like sort of like my last video with Africa Bam and all those niggas, basically, and how they came up in the beginning of their rap world. But this is like a beginning of a new rap world, the new modern era that sort of started drill music in general and birthed a lot of careers. So it's honestly a pretty crazy and interesting story. Do I think that he is a bad guy? I mean, I think he can basically say for himself that obviously he's not the most loyal dude, but I feel like the whole thing that he was trying to preach and say is that the streets aren't loyal at all. So why should he be loyal to that? And especially if he had ongoing relationships with these type of people. But his relationships with all these rappers and everything is probably going to get, you know, cut off, especially now that he went through this whole unmasking of the snitchery and everything like that. But it's an interesting and crazy story to say the least, man. But hey, let me know in the comments what y'all think about this story. Do you think he was in the right? Do you think that he was in the wrong? Do you think he made the right decision for getting this amount of money from these prosecutors and everything else so he could tell his side of the story? Or do you think that it was a wrong thing to do because he's biased and really felt like FBG Duck could do no wrong and was a super close friend to him? Let me know what y'all think about this and the whole story. And if I miss anything, definitely tap in, man. Stay safe, world. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, run up those views. And you already know, check out that merch. Link in the description at staysafeworld.com. Let me know, man. Peace.